Surviving self-reliance. Did I ever tell you about the time— not another fanciful journey, Tim interrupted. Just listen, will you? He drained his tinny and moved closer to the blazing fire. About the time we camped in the caravan at the back of Lake Tinaroo. Yeah, heaps of times. You had not a care in the world and travelled where the wind blew your fancy. Your 2 kids were perfect angels, and your cat and Afghan hound were celebrities of the highway. Yeah, you told me. Nah. Did I ever tell you about the mussel soup? Oh, get out of here. There is no story in mussel soup. Of course there is. There is a story in whatever you want to make a story out of. He stretched his legs and took out the makings for a smoke. You see, I'd got tired of the close proximity of people crammed into caravan allotments. I needed a bit of space. We headed inland to the Atherton tableland, and I just followed a dirt road until we found a deserted picnic ground on the far side of Lake Tinaroo. You ever been there? Tourists all cram in at the visitors centre, but if you follow the road around to the other side, there is a picnic area that was put in by the forestry. Very private, bit isolated, because of the dirt road, I guess. Most people don't like getting their cars dusty, even if it's a 4-wheel drive. City people pretending to be adventurous. They don't know how. We pulled in and set up camp in the late afternoon. As the sun set, we all went for a walk along the water to explore. It was a glorious twilight. The lake surface was ablaze. There was not a wisp of breeze, so the lake was as flat and smooth as a skating rink. Mountain parrots and silver eyes were squabbling for roosting positions for the night, and then 4 pelicans soared in to skim across the reflected sunlight until their webbed skis touched the water and broke the sunset into 1,000 shards. As we watched, the light gathered together once more, and the 4 white pelicans reflected the colours of crimson and gold along with the surface water. The whole thing was magical, and I knew that these memories would stay with my children all their lives. It was not only memories that I wanted to give my kids, though. I wanted them to grow up appreciating the gifts of nature. I wanted them to grow up strong and self-reliant. I noticed that there were many freshwater mussels along the muddy shore. I would show them how to live off the land. Mussels are good tucker. Linda and Stephen were horrified. You can't expect to eat those things. They're sitting in mud. I had read about mussel soup once. I could not remember the ingredients, but if I put in lots of vegetables, what could go wrong? I was determined that this was to be part of my children's education. The little sods would not help at all, so I resolutely piled shells into my hat, which always served as any number of emergency alternative uses. Stephen pointed to some marks in the mud. What made those prints, Dad? In the dying light, I made out pig spoor. Ha! Bacon on the hoof. Now that would make a good meal. Both kids turned a deeper shade of green and said they were not hungry. It was a simple thing to make up mussel soup. It didn't smell that crash hot, but it wasn't awful. I set up the table nicely to disguise the desperation I was feeling. I smiled a lot and babbled away with small talk. No one took any notice. I lit 2 candles and served up. Linda said she was too tired and wanted to go straight to bed. Stephen sat and stared at his soup. He took a slice of bread and buttered it generously. I put on a big show of digging in and making plenty of slurping noises to show them how enjoyable it really was. It wasn't, but I would not admit defeat. I mean, it was not awful, and quite acceptable, really. I took another bowlful to prove it. Stephen finished his bread and said, Thanks for dinner, Dad. I think I'll go to bed now. His bowl was still as full as when I had served up. I felt like a failure. I scraped the leftovers into the dog dish and set it outside. Tish took a sniff at it and walked away. Absently I thought, bet you found some roadkill along the track. That night I read a novel till the candle burnt down. I was about to light another one, but felt some cramping in my stomach. Perhaps if I slept it would get better. I don't remember much else until out of some deep dream state I heard my children talking. If Dad dies, will we bury him? There was no panic in Stephen's voice, only matter-of-fact logic. I tried to leap up and yell, "What do you mean dies? I'm okay. Don't bury me." I could not speak. I could not move. Horror engulfed my senses before the blackness closed over me again. Then I heard Stephen's voice, "Check the cupboards. How long can we live here until someone finds us?" My mind was crazy with fear, not just for myself, but for my kids who felt so abandoned. I wanted to call out to them, "It's all right. I'm not dying." Only my mind could move. Then the black curtain closed over me again. Time was immeasurable. Had it been a minute since I had heard those voices? Was it an hour ago? There it was again. "Linda, if you stay here, I think I can start the car and go for help." How could a child of 10 drive treacherous dirt roads? My son would wind up over some cliff. My children were in danger. Total panic gave me the strength from somewhere deep down in places I had never been. I forced my voice to work. "Daddy is not dead." Then the blackness enveloped me again. This time it was not total. I was swimming through treacle. I was using every ounce of determination to move. My focus was Linda's voice. "Dad! Dad! Wake up! Dad!" I cannot think how I managed, but my body rolled onto the floor. My conscious mind was no longer working, but subliminally I knew I had to throw up to survive. I dragged my body the few feet to the door and returned that muscle soup to the earth. "Hell, you must have been poisoned. Did you get to a doctor?" At first I was too ill. There was no strength in me. It was late the next afternoon before I could trust my driving. By the time I did see a doctor, I looked fine. He did say, though, that a person should never eat food that has been contaminated by pig poop. Wild pigs are pretty scummy creatures. Where are the kids now? Been married off for years. Steve has a 4-wheel drive and a job in the city. He gets to drive to the beach once in a blue moon. Bet he's forgotten what muscles are. Mob of softies these days. Did I ever tell you about the time? Give it a break, Fred.